My mother was a math teacher, and she taught me that moment where you go, I don't know what this is when you panic. That means you're about to figure it out. That means you've let go of what you know, and you're about to grab onto a new thing.
That's great.
That you didn't know yet. So I'm there for them in those moments, and I go, come on, just look at the problem. And then I look at the problems, and it's like, you know, Bill has 3 goldfish. He buys 2 more. How many dogs live in London?
That's comedian Louis C.K. on the David Letterman Show, joining the pushback against Common Core. In our last segment, we talked with several of our guests about diagnosing our problem in education. I think we've readily pinpointed that it's the entrenched interest who need to see the status quo continue for essentially the taken position they've been in for quite some time. Let's do this. I want to talk about some of the potential cures, but first, can we also talk about what is the problem? It's my estimation, I think I almost started a debate with you guys in the green room, that we need to revolutionize education. Whatever the status quo, including the curriculum, including how we learn, that must be revolutionized. I just want to put up these stats. These are the PISA scores. I believe they're from 2012 to show you where the United States is today. What you can see in reading, math, or science, countries like Shanghai, Hong Kong, Singapore, Japan, Korea are always near the top 5. Look at the United States, readily down, 24 in reading, 36 in math, 28 in science. We must change the way we're learning. That is my estimation. Now, I said to you earlier, I think math is a good proxy. Common Core is force is a key word, by the way, forcing us to relearn how we learn math. Now, I'm going to start with this premise. That's a laudable goal, is it not? We have to relearn how we learn. Yes?
Okay, who's going first on this?
There needs to be room for innovation.
Absolutely.
We need to be prepared to turn everything that we know about the existing education system in the U.S. and turn it on its head. One, just because of the clear demography. I mean, we are expecting, the census predicts about 11 million new students, school-age children in the next 2 decades. So while our baby boomers are retiring, we're going to have a lot more young people that we need to educate and spend, and make sure that they're producing results, because, those of us in the middle are going to be have so much pressure on us. So we have to.
And why should we assume that those 11 million should be learning the same way we did, or our grandparents did, for that matter? I think the key word, you said, Carr, innovation. Our children need to be learning in new and better ways.
Right. So competition helps drive innovation, all right?
Absolutely.
Just at the exact moment when you have all these revolutions in online learning, new ways to teach different kinds of kids, because it turns out different kids learn differently. And so new kinds of schools are developing because they have different pedagogy, right? And that appeals to, even within the same family, different siblings sometimes learn differently. And so at just this exact moment when you have this explosion of diversity and innovation in education, the idea is to standardize it, create one national way all of us learn. And I think we don't want that in any other realm. We don't want a national standard for smartphones or for running shoes or for Italian restaurants. We want people to innovate and come up with new ideas.
There's going to be no debate, unfortunately, between the 3 of us. In fact, you guys have hit the 2 most important words in my estimation in education. Innovation on one front, competition on the other. Lisa, I'm going to go to you. I think where I almost set a debate off in the green room is I said, actually, some of the things Common Core encourages. In other words, for example, how we learn math. In the past, it's been rote memorization, formulas, division houses, and so forth, where Common Core is forcing us to rethink how we learn math, make it communal, debate-oriented almost, is good. But the problem, as Bob just pointed out, is that Common Core is force, and it is one size fits all. I would suggest what they just said, innovation and competition, there's the key, right?
Right. So I think you have to contrast the Common Core with, say, the Recovery School District in New Orleans, where they have a 98% charter school market, and they're calling it the Silicon Valley of education because they have so many different innovations developing. And Tom Lovelace did a study on standardization, and it turns out states like California and Indiana that had higher standards in math, that didn't necessarily make the difference in the end. So I think,
interesting,
that Common Core becomes the ceiling where we don't let innovation in. And in some states like California, like my daughter's in an AP BC calculus class as, a sophomore, and she was able to do that because we had such high math standards here. Now they've actually lowered the 8th grade algebra standard. So kids will be taking math slower in California after the implementation of Common Core.
And actually, Lisa, you're pointing out one of the risks with Common Core, and that is even if it forces higher standards, what happens when kids can actually excel beyond that? Or somebody comes up with an innovation that perhaps pushes it even beyond that. If we go with one size fits all, we're stuck with this one model. So give me this, both of you guys.
I was going to say, Lisa's the type that rattles off names like Tom Lovelace, Brookings Institution scholars, like everyone knows who that is. But I just want to make fun of her for that. But lots of states are turning away from Common Core.
Sure.
Indiana did it. Oklahoma did it. Now the governor of Louisiana wants to do it. So there's a big pushback.
Well,
one thing, I'm sorry,
yeah, go ahead.
Carol, one thing we can give Common Core supporters is they are attempting to create accountability, but they don't need to do it through this one-size-fits-all mechanism. That's exactly what charter schools represent, right? Choice is accountability. Let people walk to the school they want.
Well, without teachers having the freedom to innovate, having autonomy over their classroom, a lot of these things that are embraced by the charter school concept, that's actually why charter schools were born, so that educators could innovate, do this stuff, experiment, do really great stuff. Absent of that kind of environment, that governance structure, the discussion about Common Core is kind of lost, because if we don't have great people who can actually teach,
right,
and have schools that can actually innovate to meet those standards.
Many have pointed out the teachers don't know how to teach the standards
exactly.
Right?
So without that accountability already built in, what good are we talking about Common Core and raising the standards when we can't even teach to it?
So, Bob, you named your whole media company after this concept of choice, which, as I suggest, that's the mechanism for accountability. But talking about some things beyond charter schools, there's voucher programs, there's homeschooling, but they've all endured their own fight, and recently in the news.
Oh, yeah. Well, last week, North Carolina, Judge Hobgood ruled against the North Carolina voucher program, which was passed by the state legislature, signed by the governor, and one judge decided it was unconstitutional based on his read of the state constitution, which, of course, says nothing about school vouchers, all right? You have cases like in Louisiana, where the federal government last year sued to stop, citing 1970s era civil rights court decisions, placed a desegregation suit against the voucher program in some schools in Louisiana. And in fact, just this month, you had a judge saying that the order to provide the feds with information about that state program was still intact, meaning the feds wanted to monitor Louisiana vouchers and make sure that none of the schools would use vouchers in a way that would increase the segregation of the schools. So it's essentially federal meddling in a state.
What a wonderful illustration of the blob, as you point out, the cartel, how it's bigger than teachers union and encompasses the government itself. Lisa, so if we can do, as parents, as people who care about this issue, if we could do one thing to help enable this concept of choice as our mechanism for accountability, what is it we could do at home, those of us watching, those of us that care? What can we do?
Right. So I think as parents, you just need to be informed about what your options are, because school choice is winning, I like to say. And even in the most traditional school systems out there, they are recognizing that parents can walk with their feet and go elsewhere. And in some school districts, the concentrations of school choice options, reach 20, 40, 60%. And parents don't think about, is it a charter school? Is it a public school? They think about, is it a high quality school? And so, getting information out that differentiates school on, the kind of curriculum, the performance of the school is what parents can just be informed.
It's amazing what will happen if you give people information, allow them to do that very, very simple thing you just point out. Find the best school for their children. Lisa Snell, Bob Bowdon, Cara Kerwin, thank you guys very much for joining us tonight.
Thank you.
That's all the time we have for tonight. Thanks for watching this special edition of Real News. Good night.